What I really liked was getting into Shaper and realizing that it was a tool built for the industry that I was about to jump into. Hi, I'm Dave, and I'm the CEO of Jaunt Motors, and we take old Land Rovers, like you can see behind me, and we convert them into electric vehicles. And it's here in Williamstown, which is the sort of the port area of Melbourne in Australia. It's a really interesting place of old world craftsmanship and new manufacturing technology. And I guess that's where we really see ourselves fitting, as taking these very imprecise old hand-built vehicles and combining them with modern, manufacturing techniques and precision. So I started using Shaper just to create reference points for, holes in the dash that I needed to match up to and these kinds of things, because it was, whether it was 3D or not, it was actually just a really great CAD tool that I could use while sitting in a car. For me personally, I was driving a newer version of one of these Land Rovers, and I just wished that I could drive in the bush in silence and without the smells of diesel and all of these kinds of things. And so through chatting, through sharing these ideas with my co-founder, we sort of evolved this into what became Jaunt. But it was an idea that, if we want this, we can solve a personal problem for ourselves, and we can also perhaps be an inspiration for Australians to get more excited about EVs than they are by creating an EV that I guess kind of fits the Australian imagination of what a car should be or should do. It was hard to start. It was, mechanically complex. You forget how bad 1960s cars are and how much work they are. So able to put an electric motor in these and, power them by batteries, power them by renewable energy, brings them sort of full circle. And that's the dream of Jaunt. There's a limited market for EV conversions, because just conversions as a general thing, because you're dealing with an audience who already loves cars and knows a lot about cars and is thinking of an EV conversion as basically a new engine. So the process of converting one of these cars is we, I guess, see it as we do some conversions of perhaps previously restored cars or newer Land Rovers. So we take an older car and completely tear it apart, so every single nut and bolt. And there's a few little modifications we make to the structure of the vehicle, because the biggest challenge with an EV conversion is fitting the batteries in. And obviously integrating modern EV controls into a 1960s vehicle needs to be done with some sort of taste and care and sort of respect for the original aesthetic. I knew that I needed something that didn't have a barrier. I didn't have time. I'm trying to start a little company with a small team, do the spreadsheets, do all the other things you got to do when you're running the company and founding the company, all of that kind of stuff. I didn't have time to learn the ins and outs of a whole very, very complex software suite. And I found that Shaper allowed me to very, very quickly, I guess, ideate. And so I could sketch in 3D faster than, or more realistically than I could sketch as a real sketch, because sometimes dealing with 3D, you really have to feel the volume of it. And so I started doing some really little pieces for the vehicles. They don't have CAD files that are available. So if you want, maybe they have the shape because they've been used in movies and stuff, so they have exterior. But when you're starting to think, well, we've got to do something here with the interior, well, we have to be modeling the surface that is going to mount to. Before we make the new part, we've got to model the old part. It was really interesting to be able to hold an iPad and sit in a car with a pair of vernier calipers and measure things, and then transcribe that directly into a 3D model, not just make a sketch and then go and sit down in the office and do it on a desktop. I guess the beauty of Shaper is that it's been to pick up small elements and to be able to use small components of it. It's quite intuitive. And so we've been able to hand it to, some of our team are older, and so we bring them in because they're super, super experienced at certain trades and crafts that are involved in building these cars, and they've never used a 3D program in their lives, but they're able to open up Shaper and get the dimension they need. The areas where sort of Shaper 3D, I think, has the most impact for us is speed, and that's for us in particular, needing to, where the industrial design and the CAD design is, inherently needs to be a secondary task to the physical act of building the cars. Having something that's simple and with us always, rather than upstairs in the the office, brings that speed, brings that collaboration to it, and stops it being such a hard separation between people on the factory floor and people doing the design. It's been had a huge influence, I guess, on our ability to, again, I guess it is speed, but it's the ability to rapidly prototype. And that's where being in a makerspace to start with was helpful, because we could make a modification in Shaper, export to an STL file, and be 3D printing, wirelessly, and walk over and it's already started printing, sort of thing. I think it has been a huge thing externally too, to our I guess audience of fans, and our customers, who we try and share as much as we can of the process we're doing. And that's really, I guess, the technology gets out of your way and you can just do the work. And that's really, really nice. What we always wanted to do with Jaunt is think, how can we not be taking a car from this end of Australia, shipping it to Jaunt here in Melbourne, and then shipping it back to that part of Australia? Wouldn't it make more sense for that to happen locally? What we may be bringing is obviously the EV side of it, but it's also the advanced manufacturing side of it, and how it might be that we're not shipping a part, we're shipping the files to print a part or to mill a part. And with that comes the need to be able to visualize and understand and play with this stuff in 3D. And I'm always excited about something that doesn't require you to have a complex understanding of the language of industrial design and forming materials. Means that it's one tool that is really powerful to us to be able to use as we scale Jaunt and work with people across the country, because we're not just giving them a part, not just giving them, say, workshop drawings, but we could genuinely give them access to the 3D objects and have that as one of the components that we use to I guess broaden production, but broaden understanding of the sort of next wave of manufacturing and industrial design.